crazy, man. So I want to backtrack, right? I want to backtrack to a comment you made earlier about Diddy and how, over the years he's been having all these run-ins with the police. Do you think the feds took notice of that? And they, at this point, they like, yo, we're going to crack down on Diddy?
What happens is that the police will bring in a CI and will use him like she was a $3 hoe. That's a confidential informant. They'll let you do crimes, long as you don't do no murders and stuff like that. They'll let you go around and pay you. When I was in law enforcement, dog, they paid confidential informants $250 for revolvers, $500 for automatic weapons, $750 to $1,500 for semi-automatic guns and rifles and machine guns and shit like that. Some confidential informants got payment like that. And plus they get 8% of a case. 8%.
All right, so we back with a bonus episode. This is the Porter Perspective, a podcast specifically for men that focuses on life lessons, correctable actions, and teachable moments, things that we can all learn from. Now, in the previous series, between episodes 1 through 4, we're discussing how the attorneys have responded to, the opposing counsel has responded to the allegations from the plaintiff, Little Rod, and his counsel. And what underlies that is the concept of military science. And when you're listening to this, and we're having this conversation as it relates to Gene Deal, the focus of this is less about whether or not Diddy is actually a confidential informant. It's more about the function of military science that underlies the principles at work. What do I mean by this? What we understand about military science is that from the Eurocentric standpoint, the first rule is deception. This is where in Greek mythology, you get the concept of the Trojan horse, which is definitely something that we'll dive in on another time. But the idea being that there is someone among you that appears to be of you, but he actually is not. He is one of us. This is what you would call a person that's a traitor. So for Gene Deal, whether, and again, these things are alleged. These things are alleged, right? But the teachable moment is that, number one, you need to be careful of the company that you keep. You have to vet people at all times. You have to look at what makes this person tick. Is this a person that could potentially put me in a situation that could cause me more harm than good? Number two, does this person have an ulterior motive? Because sometimes the issue is not you. It's about protecting that person for their own self-gain. There's what's considered a Black classic, and there's several of these, but a lot of these are crime-ridden films related to criminality and so forth. But there's a film with Nas and DMX, and rest in peace, DMX. There's a film with Nas and DMX, and it's called Belly. And without getting too into the details, at one point or another, DMX gets arrested. And when DMX gets arrested, it appears to be what is considered this somewhat shadowy organization, but it's the government, right? And so whether it's police, whether it's FBI, whatever, it's a government entity. And they are alleging that if DMX does not engage in the assassination of a local pastor who has prominence and influence on the people, specifically the youth, if DMX does not murder him in cold blood, then what will happen is that he will be arrested and have to spend the rest of his life in jail, will have to be incarcerated. Like, he plays on the fear of imprisonment. And by playing on the fear of imprisonment, it forces one to do acts that they ordinarily wouldn't do. The reason why this becomes so important for us to look at as a teachable moment is because when DMX had made the decision to engage in the activities that led to him being arrested for the shooting that took place in the Belly movie, he was not thinking about the long-term consequences of his actions. He didn't think that he would ever be in a situation where he would be forced or thinking that he would have to be compelled to kill another man. But these are things that happen. So we're gonna do a deeper dive on Belly at a later date. But the context of this is here. When we're looking at confidential informants, everything is about leverage. When you're evaluating the circle that is around you, you have to ask yourself the critical questions. Number one, what does this person have to gain? Number two, what does this person have to lose? And number three, why would they be loyal to me? Why? And is there anything that would make them be disloyal? These are real questions, because even when you look at the Black Panthers, when you look at the Southern Christian Leadership Conference with Dr. King, when you look at all of our movements, there were always confidential informants. Malcolm X would call it the difference between a house Negro and a field Negro. There was always somebody that was reporting back. It's very important that you understand who is around you. What do they have to gain? What do they have to lose? And so now, when we contextualize this and we look at this in terms of the circumstance with Mr. Combs, one has to ask the question, was the raid for Diddy, and or was it to protect someone else? What do I mean by that? It's already been brought to the forefront that there were videos, that there was a lot of evidence, surveillance, cameras, and all these different things that have been captured by the government. And so now you have to ask the question, with the information that you have on those cameras, was it purely about Diddy? Or was it about someone else? Were there other people involved where maybe you need that leverage at a later date? Maybe you don't want this to come to light. Maybe we have to make this more of a spectacle than what it should be. This is what we're talking about as men, about planning, about strategy, and execution. Don't just look at the raids. Ask yourself the question, why did this occur when it did? Why did this occur when it did? Why did the raids occur during the daytime? Why was there this manpower, these like almost armies raiding this one person's house? One in Miami, one in LA. Did someone tip Diddy off? Did he already know? It seemed as if he already knew not to be there. So the questions that we have to ask are whether or not this was planned, and it was. Easy. The next question is, why? Was this a warning? Is this to strike fear and intimidation? Is this to gain or control the narrative in the court of public opinion? Is this to make this more of a spectacle than what it is? So when Gene Deal is discussing whether Diddy has a status as a confidential informant, I want you to understand that this has always happened. So whether you're looking at the Black classics like Belly, where they attempted to make DMX an individual that was working on behalf of the government in order to save his own personal freedom, the reality of it is that this happens all the time. The people that are around you, you don't necessarily know if that person is as loyal to you as you think. You don't know what they could be getting. They might need that money. They might need some relationship. They have their own self-preservation to think about. So if giving up certain information at the expense of keeping their own sanity, keeping money in their pocket, where they're able to benefit. If it makes sense, it makes sense to them. Now, there are some of us, like myself, that live by a certain code. But there are others that don't have that same moral boundary. So when we're having a conversation about whether or not Mr. Combs is a confidential informant or not, the premise of it is that we as men have to learn how to plan. And when we're planning, we're evaluating. And when we're evaluating, we're looking at the strengths and the weaknesses of the circle that is around us. We have to look at the circle, or as Big Sean put it, it's not a circle, it's a dot, it's a corner. Because you can have a lot of people in your circle, but few people in your corner. Who is really with you, like how you say? Or does this person have a motive? So now we understand the elements of military science. We're understanding the rules of warfare. We're understanding that one of the first rules of warfare is deception. Even when you get into Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power, the first rule. What's the first rule? Never outshine a master. Deception. You get into Sun Tzu. Deception. Alton Maddox, he echoes time and time again in the form of military science under the Eurocentric lens. Deception. Having people believe that Christopher Columbus discovered America. Deception. So we have to understand that psychologically that the elements of deception are at play, and that in the hip hop industry for a long time, people have been confidential informants. So this isn't anything new. So we're going to keep going. We're going to wrap this up, but I just want to make sure that part is echoed. Let's keep going.
Of a case. So if they bring in about, just say they bring in a case $100,000. That's 8,000. What's that? What's that? $8,000. That's 8,000. They bring in $1 million case. $1 million case. That person is getting $80,000. I mean, like $80,000 on it. I think if you're talking about 8%, you know what I mean? So I'm saying that to say this: confidential informants get paid good, but Puff was a millionaire. Him being a confidential informant, him getting money like that, it was favors. He been getting favors and been paying law enforcement people for years to protect him. You understand? To protect him. We had a lot of people on the payroll when we was doing security. Everybody had, somebody might have this first 10 hours, that 10 hours, or whatever. He was paying law enforcement. He had a budget for law enforcement. Now, if something goes wrong, those people got friends in certain places. Then plus he tells his handler, yo, can you make this go away for me? I'll give you this and that.
Yeah, that about sums that up. Look, the reality is this. A lot of people have handlers. A lot of the people that you see in front of you is similar to the puppet master and the puppet. These people are propped in front of you to be your quote unquote leaders, not knowing that these people have sold out a long time ago. And when we say sold out, these are people who have made deals for their own self-preservation, which means that they're in the interest and they're serving the interests of others. It's not about you. It's not a reflection about whether they are movers and shakers that are moving society toward a more moral, sane and sound community, that they're leveraging their influence for positive gain. It's typically about self. And so at the end of the day, what you need to understand the concept of the Trojan horse. You need to understand military science, deception, and you need to figure out if you do have an informant, in the sense that this person isn't who they portray themselves to be. And when they are not in my presence, this is a person that is disclosing information that is reflecting negatively upon me, that could potentially harm me, that this is a person that has an ulterior motive, that this is a person that causes me more harm than good. again, this has been a bonus episode. I think we might do a series on this. We'll see. Might title that The Double Agent. So again, this is another way for men to learn about military science, warfare, and so forth, and then go from there. Let's build. Subscribe to the Porter Perspective. Oh, and special shout out to the Art of Dialogue. Definitely go and subscribe to both the Porter Perspective, my channel, and then subscribe to the Art of Dialogue. Thanks for always dropping great content, and let's get it going. Peace.